This video covers evergreens for sales. Match plants in your specific site, focusing on hardiness zones 2, 3, and 4. While many prefer moist, well-drained soil, specific varieties are available for clay, shady, wet, and other landscape conditions. Ensure you have adequate space, as mature sizes range from a 24-inch dwarf ornamental fir to a white pine, which can grow to over 100 feet in height. This video presents facts and traits on all common evergreens in our area. Evergreens are split into two types: conifers, such as pine, spruce, juniper, and broadleaf varieties, such as boxwood and rhododendron. These are further separated into shapes of pyramidal, upright, mounded, vase-like, or creeping. Utilize diverse colors and textures for visual appeal. These are the most commonly commercially available evergreens in our area. First, arborvitae, microbiota, and chamaecyparis. These are the most common and soil tolerant, preferring well-drained soil and full sun. Arborvitae is the most moisture tolerant, and all underperform in part shade. They should never be planted in heavy shade. Arborvitae typically features dark green fan-like needles, with the exception of threadleaf and Mr. Bowling balls. Some hybrids have yellow tips. Prune in spring, sparingly in shade, to ensure regrowth. Arborvitaes are highly susceptible to animal damage, especially deer in winter. Only mature de Groot spire is occasionally ignored by deer, but it is not immune to the desperation of hungry animals. We use spray deterrents during the growing season and physical fencing, which is installed the week before Halloween. Arborvitaes are the best choice for sunny, irrigated sites where deer damage is mitigated. The second grouping is fir, hemlock, and yew. These are the only options for dappled sun, with yews being the most shade tolerant of the three. None survive being planted under mature maple or walnut trees, and all are palatable to deer. Fir can be identified by their Christmas aroma and flat needles arranged in a double row. Balsam fir is the only large conical choice for dappled sun and prefers evenly moist, mesic soil, well-drained soils, or an elevated topsoil clay condition. The variety of hemlock, the small ornamental hybrids are difficult to establish. Canadian hemlock, the parent species, though, is more forgiving if planted in the boggy conditions they prefer. No, hand watering or irrigation do not count, and they just don't seem to provide what they need to thrive. Canadian hemlock thrives in moist, rich soil, like wetland edges. The ornamental hybrids require lots of protection from winter winds, as well as consistent moisture from rain. Try to discourage folks from planting ornamental hybrids altogether. Use fencing until Canadian hemlock reach about 8 to 10 feet in width, if the area is known for deer, as they can easily damage the dainty branches during winter. Yews. These are extremely resilient and can be heavily pruned in spring. Every year we hear from several homeowners certain that their yews have been killed by voracious deer. We explain that yews are the most durable evergreen and encourage applying ongoing deer deterrents and fertilizing with a high nitrogen fertilizer during the spring. By the 4th of July, yews will reflush in rich green growth earlier if the yews are located in the sun. Yews are identified by dark green foliage projecting from the lighter green stems and the poisonous red berries beneath. Spreading yews are the only choice for short evergreen hedges in the full shade, with the exception of boxwoods. A classic design we like to use is yew with hydrangeas planted behind them. Siberian iris or thalictrum can either be planted between the two species, and they add a cheery vertical interest. Third, junipers and pines. Both perform best in full sun and dry exposed conditions, such as the Mediterranean or the almost semi arid landscapes of Asia and North America. They require at least 5 hours of direct sun. This is no joke. Do not sneak junipers or pines into a dappled shade garden. They will not perform. Most prefer well drained soil. Ponderosa pine and Austrian pines are the only ones that tolerate dry clay. Junipers are identifiable by their prickly needles. They are typically short, and the forms come in spreading, vase-like, or upright. Junipers are the ones that are often used in topiaries, such as spirals. Be sure to water them deeply the first season as needed to ensure proper settling. Once established, they are nearly maintenance-free, except for pruning or shaping if desired. Pines are identifiable by their needles, which are the longest of the coniferous evergreens. The age of pines can be determined by counting the spaces between branches. Spaces are short during bad years, taller during favorable years. A person can even determine when a pine tree was planted by finding 2 to 4 years of shortened growth. This spacing is the historical growth of each year's candles, a term for the newest year's growth. To prune a pine, simply remove the candles in spring, or cut them to the length you want the year's growth to be. Pines do not regrow from within like arborvitaes and junipers. Only future growth can be controlled, done by pruning the spring candles. Some of our go-to pines are slow mound cultivars for a short, tidy evergreen, Trotman for a unique, narrow, upright structure loaded with clusters of porcelain blueberries in fall, and Tannenbaum pine for its classic pyramidal shape, manageable size, and reliability. Here are more favorite junipers and pines we use in our designs. Taylor is a favorite for reliability, clean upright growth, and quick adaptability to a new landscape. Like most pines and junipers, the Taylor juniper is not favored by deer. Its foliage is an attractive grayish green during growing months and more bronze in winter. They don't get as much die out as the Blue Arrow, Skyrocket, and Medora seem to get after harsh winters. The Calgary carpet and gray owl junipers are favorite spreaders. Gray owl has striking gray foliage year-round that pairs well with variegated ivory halo dogwood and medium green plants. It grows outward in a broad vase-like structure. Calgary carpet is a solid, reliable ground cover spreader with lacy foliage. Both grow relatively quickly and grow to a manageable size. The columnar pine are widely available in quantities and sizes. They are an easy, good choice for fast screening in sun. It's an excellent alternative to the overused arborvitae hedge. They will fill out nicely and have soft needles, which make a soft rustle in a breeze. Broadleaf evergreens are defined by their leaves instead of needles. In this video, I will talk about boxwoods and combine azaleas and rhododendrons into one species due to their ability to struggle in the landscape. Boxwoods. So boxwoods are the go-to for classy traditional broadleaf evergreens. They're native to the Mediterranean and Persia. They like it hot and dry, but can tolerate mesic soil and clay in certain conditions. More on that next. Boxwoods in our climate are typically 2 to 3 feet and only grow a few inches each year. Some, if left to grow, can exceed 4 to 5 feet in height and live for several decades. It's been our experience that Chicagoland variety is the most commonly commercially available and hardy cultivar in our area. It's not uncommon for boxwoods and some evergreens, including juniper and arborvitae, to lose a handful of stems each year to winter die-off. Trim these out around Mother's Day to encourage regrowth. Because of this, we don't recommend tailoring boxwoods into shapes without a plan to wrap during winter. More on that later. Related to soil conditions, we find that boxwoods tend to fare better in landscapes with decorative rock when planted in clay, suffering notably less dieback after winters. It's difficult for established boxwoods to completely die, roots and all, from the effects of winter. Nothing's impossible, we just haven't seen it. Complete die-off happens if not yet established boxwoods didn't get enough water during fall, or have significant enough air pockets around their root mass from the planter not packing soil down properly during installation. Air fluctuates in temperature much more dramatically than in water and soil. Boxwoods want consistency in temperature. The most important environmental factors to consider when planting boxwoods doesn't seem to be soil makeup or mulch coverage. It seems to be exposure to wind and protection from dramatic weather during April and early May. This is when boxwoods are coming out of dormancy. On April 15, 2015, Minnesota received a significant snowfall of 14 inches. The ground had already begun to thaw, and boxwoods, as well as other shallow fibrous rooted evergreens like junipers, were waking up from their limited moisture content, still locked inside. The direct angle of the sun now reflected off the blanket of snow, doubling the exposure to the vulnerable evergreen foliage. Exposed plants couldn't pull up moisture and were losing it through their foliage. Piles of boxwoods and evergreens measured 2 stories in height at the composting facility that spring. However, every boxwood that we pruned to stubble came back with vigor. Because plants seek equilibrium between the roots and the above ground growth, established boxwoods pushed growth over 6 inches each year after. That's incredible growth for a Midwestern boxwood. The moral of the story is to protect your boxwoods from drying conditions, especially during the vulnerable early spring period, and if dieback happens, be patient with established boxwoods since they will come back. Azaleas and rhododendrons, wow, don't do it. Only do it if you are gardening for a person that has the knowledge, the willingness to prepare the soil and take care of them. These things are only around because they look so incredibly cool in late winter, early spring, and practically sell themselves, but they are trouble. To set up these plants for tolerance, note I didn't say thrive, but for plants that can barely tolerate this climate, is to have rich, non-soggy soil that is monitored for acidity. The only variety that seems to succeed consistently for this group is PJM. PJM is the best of these. A distant second are the Lights family of azalea, which at the time of this video shows decent reliability if conditions are right. PJM is great because it survives consistently, has a nice steady bloom, and it stays manageable. It also looks good the rest of the year when it's not blooming. We find the best success in a well-tended and well-prepared landscape is when the soil is rich in compost or peat, has some rockiness, maybe some sandiness, and has an acidic lower pH level. Aluminum sulfate works well, turned into the soil during planted as an example. Brown needles do not add acidity to soil. Folks love to think that the acidity is lower under evergreen trees. However, the acidity actually leaves the needles when they turn brown. Our soil naturally wants to be basic or neutral pH. That's why these have never grown here naturally and never will. This is the end of basic evergreen knowledge.